Russia has proclaimed the annexation of 4 provinces its troops hold in Ukraine. Vladimir Putin signed the decrees in Moscow. Putin said the area's people would be Russian compatriots forever. But even as he celebrated with his regional allies, Ukrainian forces there advanced, reportedly surrounding a key Russian stronghold. Ukraine now says it will seek fast-track membership in NATO. In the region itself, dozens of civilians died in an apparent Russian missile attack. Reports say they were traveling in a convoy to deliver supplies to relatives in Russian-held territory. We have more reaction now from Ukraine. Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze is a member of the Ukrainian parliament. She previously served as the vice prime minister for Ukraine's integration into the European Union and NATO. She's in Kyiv. Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, thank you for joining me. I'm wondering if you could tell me why your country is proceeding with the NATO application at this particular point in time.
Well, thank you, David, for having me. I think we are just following through with our constitution, which foresees the strategic goals of NATO and the EU membership. But obviously, we understand that this is not the decision that will be taken in the nearest days or months or maybe even years by our partners. But we are expecting the reconfirmation of the decision that was taken supposedly back in 2008 with some prolonged period of implementation. And in the meantime, we will find the way how to ensure that the support for Ukraine is increasing from NATO countries, that we have the partners and allies on whom we can rely upon in order to win this drastic and absolutely barbaric war of the Russian Federation against not only Ukraine, but against the free world.
So there's no expectation that a decision on this and admission to NATO would be an immediate thing, because as you know, NATO and its members have been worried about widening this war. If Ukraine were to join the alliance, it effectively automatically triggers Article 5, that an attack against one is an attack against all. This is more of a medium-term to longer-term aspiration, even with this application process today?
You know, I belong to realists, so I know that we will try to work with all the member countries, and we actually appreciate already the statement of Minister Joly, who confirmed that Canada stands with Ukraine and has always welcomed Ukraine's membership in the alliance. So we'll work with other partners, and the expectation is that in the meantime, we hopefully will get some decisions that will help us to proceed with our security while we are waiting for the finalized decision on NATO's behalf.
Right. So you said you're a realist. Realistically, what kind of time frame would you be looking at for NATO to make a final decision on your application?
I really think it actually will depend on when the war will end. I do believe, I personally believe that the first day after this war will end with victory of Ukraine, it is the day when NATO has to announce about finalized decision of Ukraine joining NATO. I really believe in that, and I think that will make us stronger, both from Ukrainian side, for our country, for our people, but actually also for the transatlantic security as well. It will be just a benefit.
Okay, I'd like to talk about the war if I could, and what we saw from President Putin today, where he made a speech earlier to proclaim the annexation of much of your territory, calling upon Kyiv to cease military action, and saying that Moscow was open to negotiations. I wonder what your reaction to that is, and if there are circumstances under which Ukraine would go back to peace talks with Russia.
Well, you see, President, or I don't even want to call him President, Mr. Putin has announced something that has not happened. That is fraud, that is lies, that is sham exercise that has been put on or staged for the whole world. And so from our perspective, he announced his wishful thinking, and that does not change any decision for us to liberate our territories. So he also said that he's ready to engage in negotiations without discussing the status of all those regions of Ukraine that they have announced today parts of the Russian Federation. So which means that it's a non-go for Ukraine. So I do not expect anybody in the society of Ukraine, not to mention politicians in Ukraine, to be ready to support any discussion with the Russian Federation, any type of negotiations on any peace talks at this particular moment from this no-go that Russia is suggesting.
He's also warned that if Ukraine were to attack these territories, he's raised the possibility of nuclear retaliation. I just wonder what your reaction is to that and how this affects Ukraine's strategy in terms of dealing with these occupied and so-called annexed territories.
Once again, these are Ukrainian territories under the international law, under the understanding that there are Ukrainian citizens living there that have not been taking their voices to vote for anything at the gunpoint. So therefore, we are not going to change our willingness and our attempts to liberate those territories. And we are very much counting that we will not be alone in this fight, and that we will receive additional weaponry, additional air defense, anti-rocket systems, tanks finally, and maybe even fighters from our partners in order to capably protect our lives and in order to return those territories that belong to us. So militarily, I do not think that that's going to change anything for us. With regard to this nuclear blackmail that Putin is using, we are not naive. We understand that he might use tactical nuclear weaponry. But again, I think that here there should be a very serious, united, powerful action from all the partners, and probably going beyond NATO, beyond the EU, beyond maybe going through Rammstein, for example, platform. But there has to be a collective response that would explain to Putin in a way that if he uses any of this, the effect from his actions will be devastating for Russian Federation, for himself, and for the Russian society. I think that is possible to stop, but that requires unity and requires also courage that is definitely present here on the Ukrainian soil. And I'm very much encouraging this courage to come also from the political leadership from all the free nations.
Well, just one final question on that. This country and the free nations, as you refer to them, they have promised to escalate on sanctions and military support while also trying to stop this from spilling into a wider conflict. There have been sanctions, there has been financial and military aid to Ukraine, but yet the battle persists, the war persists. How effective do you think the Western strategy and the Western support has been in the battle against Russia?
I understand that for sanctions to work, you need unanimity among quite wide range of countries. And that is something that could lead to a result. But I still think that a lot of those sanctions that have been already imposed on Russian Federation, there are quite a few loopholes that need to be closed. And much more serious steps should and could be taken in order to pressure Russia to stop this this barbarism that they are and this war crimes that they are conducting on our territory. So I think all the resources have not been exhausted yet in terms of sanctions, in terms of pressure, in terms of building much wider platform of support against totalitarian regime, against this axis of evil that Russia is restoring in this particular moment.
Ivanna Klympush-Tsintsadze, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, David.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.